Today on the No City on the Sideline Dad podcast, I want to start off with a quote. The best day of your life is the one in which you decide your life is your own. No apologies, no excuses, no one to lean on, rely on, or blame. The gift is yours. It's an amazing journey, and you're alone responsible for the quality of it. This is the day your life really begins. Bob Mowad. This is a quote from the book that I think kind of sums up or what we're talking about today with my guest, John Alan Powell, next on the No City on the Sideline Dad podcast. Welcome to another episode of No City on the Sideline Dad podcast, episode 6. Hey, I'm Joe Foley, and I'm a dad and a parent, and I want to say thank you for being here. I know as a dad and a parent, our time is limited, so I choose to spend time listening to me. It means a lot. Thank you. And if you're new, welcome. This podcast is about having a conversation with being a dad in the issues topic related to being a dad and a parent. Dad seems always to be the sidekick sometimes, and so let's get involved and no more sitting on the sideline. This will be a weekly podcast dedicated to some sense of community by interviews, topics about being a dad and a parent. We're all going through the same issues. I love being a dad and a parent, and I know the dad stuff as parents is not easy. I'm not an expert, just a dad on a journey trying to take one day at a time in this crazy world. On today's podcast, I have John Alan Powell, international author, life coach, and all-around nice guy. He's author of his new book, My Journey, My Truth, the story of hope and courage. A lot of content to cover, so let's get right into the interview. Today's guest on the podcast, I have John Alan Powell, international author, life coach, and consultant speaker. Thanks, John, for being on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you.
I noted you also, I forgot to mention your book. It's the title is My Journey, My Truth, and Story of Hope and Courage and Transformation. It's definitely a great story. I mean, great, a book actually. And
well, and I kind of hoped and aimed for that. To me, it's a little bit more than just a book. I mean, obviously, if somebody puts a book out, it's kind of they're kind of putting themselves out there like a little vulnerability. But it's a little bit more than that because the book basically talks about the greatest hardships that I've ever had in my life too, you know?
Yeah, it seemed like everybody has some kind of hardships kind of journey through their lives, and especially as you get older. And I'm not sure how old you are, but I just going to be 42. I think I lost track. I think I'll be 42 this year. But
when was my birthday? I wrote it down somewhere.
I was born once. I had to be because I'm here now. But yeah,
you find the receipt.
And so it may well have baggage and stuff in the past that kind of like brings us into here and now, and we're still fixing it, trying to work through all the garbage. Well, the one thing I really liked about and I took away from your book is you talk a lot about mindset, and stuff like that, about positive attitude, and I don't know if you want to elaborate on that at all, or.
Well, honestly, it's all based on a choice of how you want to see what's going on, what meaning you want to assign to an event or an experience, what you decide that it means. I've been at this for many years now, and only just getting to the point where I felt comfortable enough to write a book. But yeah, it's all based on choice. There's a line in the book, and a good friend of mine wrote the foreword in the book, and he even said that it was one of his favorite lines. But the line basically is that I may have been abused in my past, but that doesn't obligate me to abuse my own future through fears and insecurities.
It's funny you talk about choice, and there's something I've always thought about in the past in my situations, and something when I was from my point of view, choice. In younger age, when you're 17, 18 years old, you're full of anger and everything, and when you have an anger problem, I guess it's a choice. You could choose to be angry, or you could choice. So I kind of relate to that what you mentioned about choice.
It is, and I get a lot of times. People have asked me if I ever have a bad day or anything, and and I always try to be maybe exuberantly, maybe not overly exuberant, but happy all the time. And I get that question often, if I ever have a bad day, and I'd say, yeah, of course. I get bad stuff all the time. My wife and I might argue over something stupid, or somebody cuts me off in traffic, or something that I really wanted to buy is suddenly sold out. Of course you get some disappointing times. But even what I wrote in the book was that what I believe is that it's always the bad times that wakes you up to all the good stuff that you had forgotten to pay attention to. It's
true. That's just true. And it's a choice. It's a choice to be that and choose to be happy or choose to be ticked off the rest of the day. And another thing I'd like to talk about, too, and I thought it was interesting, is your experience, your situation. You said in the book you were homeless for a little bit. Oh, yeah.
Actually, and I would like to address that just a scotch or a smidgen here. For anyone that has not experienced the hardship of what it is just to be homeless, right? The term or the way of saying homeless for a little bit doesn't even remotely apply to it, even if a person's only been homeless for like a week or a month, right? Because when a person is homeless, and I mean destitute homeless, a day feels like 2 weeks. 2 weeks feels like 6 months, and a month feels like a year. So when a person is in that situation, it ages you way faster than anything else does in life that I've ever found.
You can see that. You can see people, especially in homeless shelters, and they like you said, they ages people, and yeah, I can see that. I can see what you're talking about.
Yeah, it really is a terrible experience. And to be truthful, and I even put this in the book when I'm talking about that, when that period of my life had happened, of course, there were other alternative options, but because of my mental state of being at the time, I can't really tell you definitively if I was either not willing to accept it or maybe I just didn't recognize it consciously, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it was kind of my defense mechanism because all of my pain in my childhood I kind of associated to family type of settings, and family was really all I had as a fallback option at the time. And another thing I put in the book is that what I couldn't understand then was that it was my choices and my lifestyle that led me to that point, even though I spent all that time blaming everybody else but me.
Yeah, that sounds everybody but yourself, and it led you down that path. What is the childhood? What was it like growing up?
A lot of times it was it kind of went back and forth. Growing up, I never knew my father, right? He just was never around, was never in the picture, and for the most part, I've never felt anything about that. It's kind of one of those old adages where you don't miss what you never had, right? So it never really got to me, but the only dad figure that really came into my life when I was about 7, maybe 8 years old was an alcoholic stepdad. And when he would drink, he'd get mean, and then he'd be really drunk, and he'd decide he wanted to teach me how to fight. And that particular exercise never ended well. There was a time when, he busted my lip with a punch, and it made me so mad that I shoved his face through a car window.
Oh, that's not good.
That was my childhood growing up. And largely, he was usually mad at me because I would antagonize him so that he wouldn't focus on my little brother at the time. Well, now my little sister, but yeah, sort of a protective stance about that. But then I took the brunt of the beating for years and years, and I've had cigarettes put out of my skin and stabbed and all kinds of stuff over all that.
How did that affect you as you got older as an adult, and how'd you deal with it?
Well, honestly, as I got older, it just, man, there were so many things and so many opportunities and relationships with people that it just destroyed. And I was never aware of the impact. You know what I mean? Like it would happen, but I wasn't consciously aware that I was the cause of it, because all I was doing was projecting all of the negativity from my experiences.
I mean, it's tough when you're a young kid and you don't really know anything. You don't really know any better. Let's say you know any better, but you don't know. You're just doing what you think is right and protecting yourself.
Exactly. And, in the book, I even put a line that said that I had to at some point come to the realization that someone else's sickness is not my fault or responsibility, right? That they made the decision to act then during that time, but I also have the power and authority to choose to act today.
I can relate to you in the sense that we're almost similar upbringings. I had a stepfather too, and my mom and dad separated when I was younger too. And we went through the same situation. My stepfather was a drug addict. My mom was an alcoholic and medication abuser. That's a good word to put in it. And me and my brother were stepchilds, so they treated us different. He treated us different. So, and he was abusive to us too. So I can kind of relate from where you're coming from, because I can see some of the situations what I went through.
Yeah, and looking back on it, I think one of the greatest things that I actually learned from it was being able to read body language, because as like a survival instinct during those experiences, you kind of have to, as you walk into the room, you kind of have to teach yourself how to get the flavor of the room, so to speak. You know what I mean? You'd have to be able to look at a person and say, okay, well, in 3 seconds, I should know if I'm about to get punched in the mouth or if I'm about to get a nice cold drink.
Yeah. It's a good thing you read the people in the room. That's important too, and see, the feel of the room when you walk in.
Yeah. And now for the business that I'm doing, the life coaching, well, it's like transformational life coaching is what it is. But now what I'm doing, it's phenomenally helpful in the business that I'm doing.
What is a trans life coach? What is that actually?
Well, the way I like to look at it, and it may not be Webster's, but you know what? I'm not Webster, so it's okay. The way I look at it is, to help someone transform or, just make a transition from who they are today to who they want to be tomorrow, right? Whatever it is. And I've had clients that from a myriad of different places. Like I talked to one lady that she was dealing with an abusive relationship and was going to psychological appointments all the time and on heavy medications and just terrible situations. But she had a little boy, and after some sessions, I got her to learn to appreciate herself as much as she appreciates and adores her son, right? Because her son was a good frame of reference. She was familiar with that. And I was actually blessed a few months after that I got an email from her, and she said that since our coaching sessions, she's proud to say that she's no longer on medication. She no longer goes to see psychologists, and she's happier today, or at the time, she's happier today than she's been in 20 years.
Wow, that's good.
And it's that keeps me going, that really gives me that euphoric kind of a high. Who needs drugs when you get that?
They get the positive emails, makes anybody's day.
It does. And there was another guy I helped, and he was working for like a marketing firm, but he wanted to branch off and do his own thing. And I asked him, I said, well, why do you want to branch off? He says, well, because I'm not happy here. And I said, well, why are you not happy here? He says, well, because the work's just not very fulfilling. And then I said, so why do you want to start a business doing the work you already find unfulfilling?
Yeah, that's kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense if we were doing that.
Exactly. So what we did, we spent a few sessions revisiting things that even in his childhood or teenage years, young adulthood, things that he otherwise enjoyed just for the sake of enjoying it. Maybe it doesn't bring a paycheck, but it's just something that he felt a passion for doing and enjoyed it, right? And now he combined it. He combined it with his employment experience and his passion, and now he's starting a business to where he works with aspiring artists and helps them build branding for their artist business and paint and stuff.
I remember reading the book. You talked about wanting to be an author and a poet. I wonder if you wanted to expand on that a little bit, because something like almost like some of what you're talking about now with the guy with his unfulfilling work, and you talked to him about something that he did in the past when he was a kid, enjoyed, and then that's a whole chapter of the book is rediscovering passion. And I even put it's kind of like a disclaimer, but it's not really a disclaimer, because it is very important for people to recognize that just because a person has a passion does not mean that that's going to bring them money, right? If you're chasing a paycheck, what you're not doing is chasing your passion, basically. But when I was a kid, even before the abuse touched my life, right, when I was very, very young, I always wanted to be a writer. When I would go to sleep at night, I would dream of being the person that sits at the table and signs books for lines of people and stands up on stage, blah, 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 And that was my dream as a kid. You get kids that want to be pilots and astronauts and firemen and all this stuff. I wanted to be a writer, That's interesting, because I can picture myself. We used to have a talk show host in my local town where I live, and I used to always wanted to be was Mike on the open mic. That's the name of the radio host, and I always used to record his shows, and I would listen. I'm like 6 or 7 years old, and people are like, "You looking to talk radio?" I'm like, hit record on the old tape deck with the recorder in there, press the button, the red button. Yes, I'm aging myself now. I can't believe I'm even saying that.
Hey, I remember the days of calling the local radio station and requesting your favorite song and then waiting for it to come on so you can hit the record button and catch it on tape.
Funny you say that. When I was younger, me and my brother, my mom, we wanted La Bamba. My mother was, nice. La Bamba. And we waited like almost 8 hours till they played La Bamba. She called in, hey, we don't do that. And all of a sudden, we called enough times they played La Bamba.
Nice. And see, your childhood dream of being like a talk show host type thing. Now look at what you're doing.
It's great to talk to people like you, and mostly my podcast is focused on dads, but it's nice to talk to other people and see we're all the same. We're all going through the same stuff. I mean, some things are. I think some things are different. Some things are same, but we're all going the same stuff, and I kind of get a little excited about it. I'm like, oh yeah, who did I meet? Like my last interview I did it in Melbourne, Australia, and it was kind of cool. I did it on Sunday at 8 o'clock, but he was like 12 o'clock on Monday. I'm like, it's like talking into the future. This is cool.
Yeah, I got a couple of friends that live out there, and one really good friend, I call him Future Boy, and all that stuff is like a Back to the Future reference. What's next, Future Boy?
Can you predict the score of the game for me?
What's tomorrow going to be like?
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It doesn't really. I mean, your podcast is on being a parent, yes, but you're also just amazingly on point when you say that we're all the same. Everybody's got different things they're going through, and that was the reason for me to publish the book. When I started writing the book, I just started it because I was tired of telling my story over and over and over again, right? So I figured I'm just going to put it down and tell somebody to go get it. But then it turned into this thing that because I didn't know who or what to write it for or anything. I didn't even know what to write. I just was going to write. But I decided, because I didn't know what to do, I said, you know what, I'm just going to decide to do it this way, and I'm going to follow through and see what the result is. If it's crap, I throw it away. It's not that big, right? And I just started writing for an audience of one person that may need to hear something that I went through. And now everybody that's that has seen the book, everyone that's always said, man, there was something in there, and I really I didn't even know it myself, but when I saw it, I knew I needed that.
I can, like I said, I relate to about like some of the stuff you're going through, and some of the things you mentioned. But another thing I like to touch upon a little bit, because I've seen a lot of family members in past relationships dealing with something, anxiety disorder and depression, and I've seen people they're frozen. They couldn't do anything. They're just stuck in one spot, staring into space because they're so depressed and anxiety. I just wondered if you want to touch a little bit on that.
Well, actually, I spent many years exactly like that. I'd have probably 20 panic attacks a day, which, for anyone that's not familiar that might be listening, a panic attack is different than having just generalized anxiety. Okay, generalized anxiety is when you basically worry about everything that could go wrong, but rarely does. Right? I mean, just everything that could possibly go wrong with whatever is going on. Like, your mind is thinking 10 steps ahead, and every one of those steps is a different creative way that it could fail. That's basically generalized anxiety. But when it gets to panic attacks, each attack is almost like you're having a heart attack and you think your life is ending in that moment. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and it's debilitating. Really, it is, because everything in the world stops when you think, I'm dying in this moment. I'm not going to make it to the next moment. This is it. Right. And you get that 20 times a day for years. It wakes you up from bed. You can't, I couldn't even make phone calls to people because I would look at the phone, I'd pick it up, and my heart would begin to race, and I'd think, oh my God, I can't deal with this pressure. Hang the phone up. Like, I couldn't even make phone calls.
That can be frightening too.
Yeah, it was terrible, and the thing is that it just, when I saw the psychologists and stuff, they gave me medications. They gave me the Xanax and blah, 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 ADHD, depression, PTSD. They gave me all this medication for it. But I think the most beneficial thing that they ever did was tell me that it was impossible for me to live a normal life because of what I had, right? That they dared to tell me what I couldn't do.
Do you think sometimes since you've been through experiences, do you think sometimes they over-medicate people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They give out Adderall and stuff for ADHD like candy to kids. And, for the simple fact that the symptoms that they're saying for most ADHD cases now are really just kids being kids.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I can see that. And then it's easier just to do that than to have to deal with the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and what killed me, what got me moving forward, was the doctor telling me that it was impossible, and I said, it's only impossible because you've never seen anybody do it, but you're about to, so sit back and watch.
It's like the person telling me can't walk, and all of a sudden the guy walks in like a year later. You told me I couldn't walk.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there was and again, it's all the power of choice and mindset and just sticking to your goals, right? It's really all it boils down to. But there was a famous Olympian named Dan Millman who was in a motorcycle accident, and he shattered his leg in, I think, 16 different pieces, right? All the bones in his leg. And they had to put a metal rod with pins in his leg to hold his leg together. And they said that he would never compete again. He was doing, the rings where they jump up on the rings and they do the flips and stuff. That was his event. So, I mean, he could still do it because it was his leg, and, the rings only really requires the upper body. But that dismount, when you got a bar in your leg holding your bones of your leg together and you're trying to land a dismount, That's not going to be good. So the doctors told him he would never compete again. And I think it was like 10 months later, he went off to break world records at that Olympics and won gold.
Wow, that's amazing. I never heard about that. I mean, you always hear those cases, but I never really heard about that one. That's amazing because it's a miracle. Mind over things, mind over matter. They say, but if you can think it can happen if you really put hard work into it and really try.
And that's it, and I don't want to get too much into the details of it, but I put in the book exactly what I did to overcome my depression and my anxiety. And then what I found was that as I overcame the different things of anxiety that made me personally anxious, I found that I wasn't really experiencing PTSD anymore. And so I actually went, after I did that discovery, I went and talked to several different psychologists that I knew, like friends through friends type of networking. And I would ask them about it, and they all confirmed that post-traumatic stress disorder is really a derivation of anxiety disorder, right? It's an extreme, it's like anxiety disorder on heroin, right? So if you get rid of the triggers for anxiety, then you no longer have triggers for PTSD.
Interesting. I never knew that.
Right. So, and I didn't know that either, but it was kind of like a stumble upon, and hey, that's pretty cool, But something that always bothered me, and I like how you brought it up with kids and ADHD and they're over medicating. Something that bothers me still is the oversimplification with psychologists and doctors and things saying that it's a chemical imbalance in the brain that causes these disorders, blah, 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 right? The big boogeyman in the room. And my contention, after experiencing all the things that I have and talking to all the different doctors and professionals I've talked to about all of this, and I opened up my medical records to all of them so they could see it and see that I wasn't faking, blah, 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 right? My contention is that it's just like when you're sick. Say you have the flu, right? Your body will automatically adjust to your conditions of being in the flu, right? So it'll have one of two responses, if not like a mix of both. It'll be trying to combat and overcome the virus, right, by releasing new chemicals and new antibodies into your body. Or it will manage it, right, which is what you see a lot of times with cancer. Your body just tries to manage until it can't manage anymore. It's not going to combat it. And that's my contention when it comes to these mental disorders when doctors say that it's a chemical imbalance. I think the chemical imbalance is just like when you have the flu. I think the chemical imbalance is not the cause of the problem, but rather the result of the problem.
That makes sense.
Like the cause is your mentality, your belief systems, the stories you're telling yourself. It's the combination of all of these things. Your living conditions, the way that your lifestyle pattern is, your belief systems, the stories you assign to meanings for different things. All of these things combine to build a certain kind of mentality, and then that mentality gets labeled as, say, depression or anxiety or something like that. And then suddenly your body is now shifting chemically to try to help you manage that condition, right? So now the chemicals in your brain are changing and everything else. But what happens when you change the condition?
Interesting. I'm not sure.
To me, it seems like if you change the condition, and that's what happened with me, when you change a condition, your body kind of normalizes and the chemicals go back to the way they were supposed to be in the first place. You don't need medications, really. The medications are just there to help you manage the symptoms.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's like you said, like the flu, like you're talking about the flu before, and manage the system, just manage it so you can feel better and get through with the situation you're at hand.
Exactly. Well, that's my contention. I'm not, by no means am I a certified professional with this stuff, but that's my contention and my personal experience. So if you want some anecdotal John Powell thing, there you go.
Okay, we'll put it that way. No, that was interesting. We'll switch gears here a little bit from the depression and that's a topic. You talk a lot about dreams. One thing I wanted to ask you, your dreams are possible. What did you mean by that in the book? I was just curious.
That everyone has something about them, something that they're just better at than someone else, right? I mean, you have your talents, your skills, but everyone has dreams. And if you put two people side by side in a room, right, and you put a video camera on them, and you even use the scientific method, whatever, right, and you compare these two people, one of them is someone that strives after their dreams, win or lose, they just go after it, and another one that's playing it safe and working the 9 to 5, not happy, this and that, right? Not fulfilled, basically. And you look at the two of them, there is a tangible difference between these two people, right? You could they could be the exact same in every other way, except for these two things, and there is a tangible difference between the two.
Yep.
Right? Because your dreams, following your passion and your dreams, whether it gives you money, whether it gives you a sustained income, it doesn't matter, because these things will give you a sense of existential purpose in life. And that brings you fulfillment and happiness and joy. Without these things, life really, in my opinion, life really isn't worth it. I mean, there's so much other pain and different things that a person can experience in their life. Without that level of joy to kind of help balance the scales, what's the point, in my opinion?
Things about people like that one guy, like the one example was playing it safe. Could it be that the person just scared to try something else or do something else, maybe fear, overcome by fear?
And it is a big factor. In fact, we were just talking about that on the podcast show I did last night. We were just talking about fear, and a lot of times I think fear it's like the common currency in the world today. It's the monetary gain that we get by trading in our dreams and our passions and desires. We trade all these things in for fear and excuses.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I'm not saying I'm big on social media, but I was always kind of wary to talk to people, because what if I say this? They'll probably think I'm stupid, or, well, who the heck are you to say this stuff to me? And I'm like, oh, what the heck? I'll just start talking to people and see what happens. Because the worst thing they'd say to me is, stop talking to me. Yeah, so it's right. The fear of, it's the fear of, just jump in, because I find that starting this podcast is trying this podcast and doing interviews with you, like your interview with you, and I did a couple other interviews, and helps me calm down a little bit and relax, because believe me, every time before an interview, I get nervous. I'm like, hope I don't screw this up. Hope I don't make a mistake. And it's funny, because in the past, I felt the same way when I did theater. When I was younger, I did a little bit of theater, and always felt the same way before I got on stage. I'm going to mess my lines up. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. And I did do, so it's like, I understand the fear, because you know what? It's just jump and do it.
And I had, I love that you bring that up with some of your past experiences and your experiences with doing the podcast, which, if I can encourage you a little bit, you're way more experienced in podcasts than I am. This is only my second one. But when I started doing my business, right, I didn't know what I was going to do. I realized that I've already been spending years helping people and giving advice and such. Why don't I just do a business and get paid for it, right? And then as I was starting, I had this giant inner turmoil with fear. And I kept saying that, well, who am I to talk to these people? I'm not a psychologist. I'm not this. I'm not that. Whatever the excuse is, everybody has their own. And I just kept telling myself that. And then I calmed it all down with reasoning to myself, like giving logical arguments, right? Like that always works. But it actually worked in this case, because I started to tell myself, you know what? If my focus is on my imagined insecurities, my imagined limitations, then my focus isn't where it belongs and it belongs on the people that I'm there to help.
Makes sense.
So if I'm focused on my own insecurities, then I'm robbing someone else of an opportunity to get the help that they need, if I can provide that help.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that makes a lot of sense.
And I don't know if that might help you or even someone else, because if you think about it, you're doing this podcast and you've got however many listeners you've got. I mean, it varies. I have no idea. But if you get too focused and set on your own imagined limitations, then that means that someone that was going to be one of your listeners to your podcast misses out on an opportunity to get what they needed from you.
Yeah, because you never know who's listening, too. You never know who's listening.
Exactly.
And I might hit on a certain key or certain topic that one night, and they're like, that's what I was looking for.
Exactly. Integrity and character and honor, none of these things are light switches that just go on and off when people are watching and you know about it. And
I think the one word that keeps being thrown around is authenticity. And being authentic and be yourself, and it's one of those big words they keep throwing around a lot of. Like you hear a lot of other podcasts. It's be authentic, be real, and that's kind of like what I like to do here in this podcast. Is I try to be authentic. It's like having a conversation, two guys and with a cup of coffee.
Yeah, and even if say 10, 20 people didn't like what's going on, if 5 or 6 other people did, then wasn't it worth doing it?
Absolutely. Well, I just want to wrap it up because we're running a little bit out of time tonight. Anything you would like to add? Anything at the end you'd like to add to the show? I'm sorry, clear my throat.
Well, I mean, there's not really. I could probably go for days and just talk. I mean, really, this is something that I'm so excited and passionate about all the time. It's not just. Excuse me. It's not just a book. This is my passion. This is what excites me every day, is making that positive difference and impact in another person's life, regardless of the medium. We are here talking about the book, and I feel we should probably mention that the book it launches internationally Friday. November
18th, and it'll be on Amazon?
Yes, it'll be on Amazon, ships all over the world. If somebody wants a signed copy of the book, feel free to visit my website, www.johnalanpowell.com. It's the author page. Shoot me a message, and then we'll do like a PayPal thing where you can pay for the book, and I'll just mail it to you after I sign it.
Awesome, and I'll make sure that the links and stuff are in the show notes and all your to your webpage and the Amazon link. I'll make sure that's in the show notes so people can find the book. And it's like I said, it's one of those books that you have to read because it hits on keys and topics that you don't realize you were thinking about because realized you were thinking about because your book hits on it. You're like, oh, that's the answer I was looking.
Well, yeah, and that was the whole point behind the book. When I first started writing, the book was probably twice as long as what it is now. But I didn't want to have this intimidating kind of a presence on a book, right? So I got the book down to, I think the actual thing, if you count all the pages with the credits and everything, it's like 130 pages, right? So it's a very, very small book, just a handful of chapters. It's nothing major. It's a light, simple read, and I wrote it in the context of, say, 2 people sitting down over a cup of coffee and just having a conversation. Mm-hmm. Right, that's the way that it's written. So it's not even a hard thing to follow. And at the end of each chapter, I've included blank pages for notes, so that a person could just jot down their own thoughts after they get through each chapter and go back through.
Yes, I did see the notes. Then that'd be very helpful too, because you have a lot of exercise in there too about different things that come, different exercises in the book.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, John. I really do appreciate it. And we can find obviously you mentioned the website, but I'll mention it again, johnpowell.com, and it'll be on Amazon Friday, November 18th, internationally. Anybody internationally can buy it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, John. Have a good evening. Thank you.
You too, sir. Thank you.
Well, that's all we have for this episode. Thank you for joining me on the Note City on the Sideline Dad podcast. You can find the show notes over at notecityonthesideline.com. And please comment on the podcast. All comments help improve the podcast. I can reach at joe@notecityonthesideline.com. And you can find me on Twitter at NSOSDadPodcast. All the links we mentioned in the podcast about John Alan Powell's book and his website will be in the show notes. Also, you can reach me if you go to the website in the right-hand corner of the speak button. Leave an audio comment or concern. And please keep it constructive. Because negative, it means stuff is not fun. Well, until next time, thank you very much. Have fun, get involved with your kids. See ya.